Hola, hola, amiga. Do you find yourself constantly rushing through life, trying to be everything to everyone while your own well being takes a back seat? Are you tired of feeling guilty for taking time for yourself or struggling to find balance between your career and family life? If you're nodding your head, then you're not alone. Today, we welcome Jessica Rojas from Jessica Lynn Wellness. Jessica is a certified health and wellness coach and work life balance expert, and she's dedicated to helping women of color in corporate and 9 to 5 jobs reclaim their time and energy. Jess empowers her clients to break free from hustle culture and create space for what truly matters, whether it's family, self care, or simply enjoying life without sacrificing their career goals or well being. Through personalized one on one coaching, Jess guides her clients in defining their own version of balance, setting boundaries, and creating the time and energy to be fully present for themselves and their loved ones. In this episode, Jessica shares her insights and strategies on maintaining balance and managing energy effectively. She also opens up her own journey from career driven burnout to a life of intentional living and wellness. We dive into the myths of the 50-50 balance and explore practical tips for prioritizing self care, setting realistic goals, and breaking free from societal and cultural expectations. A key insight from our conversation is understanding that rest isn't a reward to be earned. Rather, it's essential for our well being. And I always say that, especially on social media, but also through this podcast. Jessica addresses the cultural conditioning many Latinas face, where being constantly busy is seen as a badge of honor, and helps us reframe these limiting beliefs. This episode is especially valuable for Latina moms who are struggling to balance their various roles and responsibilities while maintaining their sense of self. Jessica's approach combines cultural understanding with practical wellness strategies, helping you move from survival mode to truly thriving. Whether you're a working mom, stay at home mom, or preparing for motherhood, this conversation offers valuable insights for creating a more balanced, fulfilling life that honors both your cultural heritage and personal well being. So please stay tuned as we welcome our guest, Jessica Rojas. Welcome to the Viva la Mami podcast. I am your host, Jessica Cuevas. I am a mother of two on a mission to help redefine the meaning of motherhood as a modern Latina mom. Motherhood can be a complex journey, interwoven in two identities that often make us feel ni de aquí ni de allá. Viva la Mami is committed to providing you with knowledge, tools, and support to navigate the challenges and triumphs of motherhood as Latina moms. On the show, we'll be discussing culturally relevant topics that will help inform and empower you in whichever season you are in on your motherhood journey. We'll be joined by Latina moms, experts, and professionals who can offer advice, practical tips, relatable stories, and honest conversations. So bring your cafecito as I invite you to be a part of this space as we create comunidad about the exciting and challenging parts of being a mommy. Ahora, vámonos. Hola, hola, Jessica. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. Happy to finally connect.
Yes, I'm so excited for you to be here. We met during the Mujeron movement in Chicago earlier this fall, and it was just amazing to be surrounded with all of these amazing Latinas. But I felt like you and I connected well because we talked a lot about just like how do we balance our lives as busy women. And I'm loving all what you're doing. And so I'm really excited for you to be here to share your expertise and just to give some tips to mamas, especially as we lose our sense of identity and understanding how we can balance our lives, our professional lives, and how that can be surrounded with this identity as well. And so, before we delve into the conversation, though, if you can share a little bit more about you, if you can tell our listeners more about yourself.
Yeah. So I'm Jessica Rojas. I'm originally from LA, but now I'm living in the Sacramento area, so Northern California. I am an eldest daughter to Mexican and Salvadorian immigrants. My mom is from El Salvador. My dad is from Mexico. But I grew up mostly with my mom, and I have four sisters, and um, definitely grew up with my mom, but with my grandma and my tias and everyone around. So um, you know, the whole Latino culture of having everybody there, everyone supporting each other and having an entire village, which was really great. And I think that I miss that. I don't see that as often anymore, at least our generation, like not being around like their entire family. And I'm not a mom yet, but um, soon to be one, hopefully. And yeah, and I always think about those things, right? It's just like my upbringing and being around my whole family at first, and now everyone's like spread all over the place, and like none of my sisters live anywhere near me. I'm like, what am I supposed to do when I become a mom?
Yeah, oof, it's such a struggle, and especially because you grew up in a close knit community. That's how I grew up too. I had my abuelita. We lived in a multifamily home where it was my grandma on the main floor, it was us on the top floor, and then some other tios on the bottom floor, and it was all community, right? And everyone depended on each other. If one person was working, well, the other person was cooking so that everyone can be fed. And
Yeah,
now it's like, it's just me and my husband. We're trying to figure this out, and we are our own kind of community, our own little village, but it
yeah,
does make it very complicated when you need the help and the help isn't there at your disposal compared to the way that we grew up. And so it's definitely a challenge, and I'm glad that you recognize that, and hopefully you and your partner can kind of figure out how this will look like once you're ready to start a family, because it kind of shocked me because I was so reliant on my family and now I don't have them so close either.
yeah. That's one of the things for me, honestly, like that I'm like, finally ready in my life to be a mom. And that, but then I'm like, oh, how am I gonna do it? Like not having family around, and having to like figure it out on your own. And I know that you end up finding your community and finding your village, but I guess especially like you said, both of us growing up in a environment with like, your Thea was next door, your grandma was there, somebody was always looking out for each other and making sure people were fed, taken care of, taken to school. So without that, it's like, yeah, you have to put your big girl pants and like figure out how to find those communities that are not maybe your family, but that they can become people that are like family.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. And yeah. And I think that it's also a way for us to be open to whenever help is being offered, because sometimes we're very, very reluctant because they're not family, or we believe that we may not trust them, or, uh,
Yeah.
yeah. But I think that that's when we should be open to accepting help when needed. So yeah, that's,
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
yeah.
100% agree with that.
Yes. Well, Jessica, you are a wellness coach. So tell
Mhm.
us a little bit more how that led you into becoming this. And if you can tell us what really inspired you to become a wellness coach.
Yeah, so my background is in public health, and I've worked in that industry for years. I mostly do more of like the business side of healthcare, but my passion has always been preventative health. And even before I got my master's, I became certified as a health education specialist. And then, like, throughout my own personal journey, wellness has always been what has helped me managing like my mental health, managing with just my health overall. And I just know how important it is, especially for communities of color where we are, um, disproportionately, we have the highest risk of so many health concerns. And a lot of them can be prevented just by your lifestyle changes. It doesn't even require too much. So for me, like that's something that's so important, especially as I see like, my family aging, like my, grandparents that passed away, like my, aunts and uncles aging, and just seeing how important it is for you to like start early to take care of yourself because, we only have this one body. well, we only have this one life. And if you can just make small changes in your life, like early on, then it can prevent like a lifetime of illnesses. So for me, that like has always been important. So while, still having my career, I decided, okay, well, what can I do to still be able to pursue like my passion for wellness and preventative health. Um, so yeah, so I became certified as a health and wellness coach. And the more I learned about the industry, then I learned about entrepreneurship, which like I didn't think about starting a business. For me, it was like, how can I just like help people in this capacity? Um, as like my passion project or something, or maybe I get a part-time job as a coach. And then I was like, wait, I can have my own business. So then, yeah, that was just like a happy bonus. I wasn't actually pursuing to start a business. It was more like I learned about it, and just the flexibility of having your own business and being able to design, the coaching and the program the way that I can, bring in my expertise and public health and like behavior change models, and just how can I design a program that is specific to the communities that I want to work with and that I'm passionate in working with. So yeah, a lot of it was like the flexibility and just like having more independence if you have your own business.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I've also encountered entrepreneurship and I had no idea and I'm still learning, but I think that's the beauty of it where you can grow and trying to see if there are any missing gaps with
Yeah.
the community that you want to serve. And I think that with you utilizing your public health expertise, you are definitely niching towards a specific kind of audience. And yeah, so as a Latina wellness coach, like you emphasize that rest isn't a reward, but essential. And for many Latina moms, that is something that we struggle with. Uh, and I think it's just society and culturally speaking, right? Like moms
Mhm.
are the ones who are always tired, that we don't sleep all the time because either we're preocupadas or we're going through the postpartum phase where we don't sleep often. And obviously, we all go through seasons of life where it's going to be a part of our lives for a little
Mhm.
bit. But then as we progress in other seasons, like we, for some reason, still don't adapt to acquiring sleep and a healthy sleep. And so what cultural or generational patterns have you observed that makes it challenging for Latinas to prioritize on self-care? And how do you help them rewrite these sort of narratives that we grew up seeing our mamas, tias, abuelas, and all of that?
Yeah, no, exactly what you said. Like a lot of it is like cultural conditioning. And actually that is kind of what led me with working with women of color in particular, and around like this work-life balance, or what is even work-life balance, right? Because it's like I I notice a lot of patterns, especially around um things that we grew up seeing, right? So, like you said, you grew up seeing your tias, your mom, your abuela, just always working hard, never taking a beat, like never like sitting down. And if you were sitting down, they'll look at you like, "Why you being a huevona? You're not doing nothing." Like, so it's ingrained in us that like being inactive means you're not doing something, means that you're lazy. And also, like we've seen our parents or like our moms, like do everything and be everything for everyone. And in our culture too, like selflessness is seen as something to be like something to be proud of. It seen as like that is how you show love and devotion. But you don't really see self-love or self-care as being something that is celebrated. It's something that is valued. So again, it's like these things that you grow up with and like you might not even think of it. And logically, you're like, I know rest is important. But subconsciously, like you still have those like beliefs and still have those fears or guilt when you are taking time for yourself, when you are, just taking it easy, then you feel like, wait, I should be doing something. I'm not doing something. I'm not being a good mom. If I'm just like laying here with my kid, I could be, cleaning the house or I could be doing something else, right? So you always have like that guilt or shame in the back of your mind because you grew up like seeing something different. And then it- that didn't really model rest. It didn't model self care to you. So it's definitely for like our generation to shift that, to like break that cycle. And, for our parents and their past generations, like maybe they didn't have a lot of options and choices to be able to like take some time to rest. So for them, it was something that had to be earned. But like we have so many more opportunities and choices and a chance to like change these things, to change the cycle so that like our future kids or like future generations don't have to be like having these conditions that we grew up with.
Yes. Yes. And it's all about what's important for you,
Mhm.
versus what's something that you're willing to give up, really. And I think often about our toddler right now. Well, I have technically two toddlers, but the one that's
Mhm.
more vocal and older, he's almost 4. We give him choices. You choose this or that.
Mhm.
And so we're doing this, but why can't we also practice that, right? In
Yeah.
terms of making our own choices.
Yeah.
And and yeah, and we wanna make sure that our kids have that ability to choose between 2 things so that way they can move on or prioritize on their own pursuits, but we don't bring that back to us. And why is
Mhm.
that? When we're often socialized and even like through a cultural lens, we just believe that women can do it all, right? Que we are super
Yeah.
mamas and we need to hustle.
And if you're not, then you're not being a good mom or something, that you're not
Exactly.
doing it right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And the whole thing you said about rewriting it, it's just like really it takes like a lot of like self-awareness, right? So you like noticing those things. Like I'm noticing that I'm exhausted and like reaching my limit, but I'm still trying to like l- live for this like should and like trying to do these things. So just like understanding that rest is not making you less committed. Rest is not meaning that you're not doing enough. It's actually going to expand your capacity to do things. And not just rest, but like self care. Like when you are pouring into yourself, especially as a mom, you're able to like be able to give more because if you're not pouring into yourself, you're literally giving from an empty cup. And then you're not even able to be present for your kids. You're not able to be like enjoying that quality time. Instead, you'll be irritable, you'll be exhausted, you'll physically be there, but then your mind and your body would be your mind would be somewhere else. And like that, I'm sure that's not the kind of time that you want to be dedicating or that you want to be with your family that way where you're just so exhausted that you're like physically there but mentally you're
Right. Right. Yes. And I often wonder with my experience, and I don't know if this was something that you also witnessed with your mom or any other mujeres that you grew up with,
Mhm.
but just like how you said, a lot like I've witnessed my mom always being irritable. I've always seen her being in a hona, like, and even my grandma, like all of them had like this very strong character where they were never like at ease. They were never like, okay,
Yes.
wait, it was always like, we need to go, vamonos. Like, it was always like we're under this constant
Rushing, yes.
pressure. Yeah, and rushing. And I understand that maybe it was mostly out of survival or we needed to get to a certain place. And for me, now that I'm raising my kids, I'm like, okay, how can I be a little bit more present without
Mhm.
having them feel this constant rush the way that I grew
Because
up?
it's that anxiety and like I have that anxiety and like I'm not a mom, but I have a dog. So like during the puppy phase, I was always like that too. I'm just like, I don't know what to do. And like irritable and like I'm like, oh my God, this is training me for sure. Because I'm like, okay, this is not how I want to be when I have like a little kid running around and
Yeah.
you're sleep deprived and stuff like that. But yeah, it's like that's the energy that we're giving others. And like as a mom, that's energy you're giving out to your kids. And like as beings, we are all energy. And like all of that, like, when you're around people who are in a bad mood, you feel that. When you're around
Yeah.
people with high anxiety, you feel that. So it's like, is that how you want to model to your children? And is that like what you want them to think of mommy as being? You know, like tense and anxiety. And, a lot of times, like you said, you're still trying to figure it out, especially if you're newer to being a mom. So it's not to say that if you're irritable or if you have anxiety, that that's a bad thing, but it's more of like a recognizing that, like, oh, I'm feeling exhausted, I'm feeling irritable, and like pausing and being like, oh, like I'm feeling this way. Like, what can I do in that moment? Like, can I take like 3 deep breaths and that's gonna help me calm down? Can I talk to myself? It's like, okay, if you're running late, you're already late.
Right.
Like, and that was something as a mujer on too. It's like, trying to rush your kids out of bed when they're running late to school. Like, you're already late instead of trying to be like, hurry up and get out of here. It's like, you're already late. Take a breath, give your kids love, do what you got to do. And like, it doesn't have to be perfect and that's okay. But the key thing too, a lot when we're feeling like so frazzled, stressed, exhausted, is just like taking a pause. And like, rest could be as simple as taking a pause. If you only have like 5 minutes, if you have 3 minutes, like take a few deep breaths. That's like naturally is going to relax your nervous system. It's going to help you like actually clear your mind a little bit because you're not just going to have all that anxiety in your head. And allow you to like to make the next move from like a more clear mindset and clear space than just like trying to rush into things.
Yeah, that's valid. And thank you for sharing that because it can serve as a reminder for my listeners because it is true, just we need to just take a couple steps back and just like not react to the things that are sometimes out of our control. Time is
Yeah.
out of our control, but we can make it work for us in on that specific case. So as I was looking at your Instagram and information, you
Mhm.
mentioned a lot about the 50-50 balance myth. Can you tell us a little bit more about how we can get rid of that? How you can help kids to be more present and have that balance in terms of making their own kind of realistic version of it?
Yeah. Yeah. And like the whole 50-50 myth is like, you're expected that you give 50% to your job or career or whatever, and then 50 to life. And I mean, especially as a mom, and I feel like the more identities and responsibilities you have, and all those layers, that's all going to require more of you. So it's like, you're one person, you can't split yourself evenly into all of your different responsibilities. Like, there's always going to be a time that, like, your work is going to require more of you, or a time that your family is going to require more of you, or a time that you yourself, like, is gonna need more of your attention. So it's like that, like getting out of the idea that you need to be splitting your time or splitting yourself evenly into all of these different identities and responsibilities that you have. So it's like understanding that if all you can give to one area is 20%, then that's enough. If all you can give to another area on another time is only 5%, then that's enough. So just getting out of the idea that you need to be perfectly evening out your responsibilities in order for you to like create that balance. So that's when like people are like, balance doesn't exist. That
Mm.
balance doesn't exist, but your version of what's going to work for you, that's the balance that you're trying to create. And that's like what you should be working towards, because like something that might work for me is not going to work for you in your life. And that's what I tell people all the time. Like there's so many tools out there. There's so much advice. Like, yes, you can, work on managing your time or managing your energy, but if you're not personalizing to what's going to work for you and like really understand what are your needs, what are your values, like what are your priorities, what's important for you, once you like have all that, then you can create like, okay, if I value being with my kids, when they get home from school and, spending dinner with them, then how can I make like my work, like work out so that I have that opportunity? Like, I had a client she was able to like be more flexible with her work schedule and getting out of that mentality that work has to be, 8 to 5 or 9 to 5. And then after that, you rush and try to do everything with your kids. So she has the flexibility at work to be able to work in the evening. So it's not like, oh, I'm working in the evening, but it's more like, okay, if I take a few hours during the day so that I can pick up my kids, help them with homework, be present at dinner time. Then in the evening, I can do the work that doesn't require much of my attention. So like emails, maybe going through presentations, like creating presentations or things like that. So that allowed her to be present and not feel like she has to rush out of work to get everything done so that she can be with her kids. But then when she's with her kids, she's exhausted.
Yeah.
So it's just like realizing that there's so much that you can personalize for yourself and find like based on what's important to you, like everything can be like you can figure it out. Like if something is important to you, you're gonna make it work.
Yeah.
So whether if it's a job and that job is not being flexible, then you get another job. Because at the end of the day, jobs are replaceable, but like you're gonna always be a mom. And taking into account like what are your priorities? If your priorities is like being able to be present with your kids, then you make it work. And it's
Yes.
like finding like those ways of like how can I like make it work for me?
Yeah.
And like it's not gonna look the same for the other mom. It's not gonna look the same for like the same as like what our parents did because they maybe didn't have those choices of like flexibility and weren't around, and because of that, you feel that you need to like always like be there with your kids too. So that's another like conditioning thing. If like, your parents weren't around because they were always working, then you feel like you have to like be there. So when you are with your kids, you're like, I need to be perfect and need to like be their everything. But again,
Mhm.
like how can you still like career is important to you? You can still like give it your dedication and your commitment and doesn't make you less of a good mom.
Right.
So it's just
Right.
like recognizing that you want to take into account, like, what is it that I value? What's important to me? And having other things that you care about doesn't mean that you're not a good mom. And how can I like design my life in a way that I am able to be like focused and dedicated when I'm in my career and when I'm with my kids? How can I be focused and dedicated where I'm not thinking about work? And then, when I'm with my partner and then when I'm with myself, like, how can I also make time to spend with myself, to like nourish myself, to give myself so that I can be available and be present when I am with other people or like your career, your job, or whatever is in need of your attention.
And I think this is very helpful for new moms on how they can ditch the 50-50 balance myth. Because as I reflect on me, I thought that I had to literally give half of myself towards family and half of myself towards my job. And that burned me out. And I thought that I had to have the work life balance, and everyone talks about work life balance, right? And that ultimately led me to just like leave the workforce full time. And now I'm in this season where I'm like, crap, like I wish I would have reflected. I wish I would have had the opportunity to really figure out what my values were really and how that's aligned with putting in that effort in terms of how I can prioritize, whether if it's my job or my personal life. And it does make it hard, especially when when we go through this identity shift, when we are fully in this work mode, we are dedicated professionals, and then suddenly you're a mom and it's like, wait, what? Now I have to do something else. And it's so much load that accumulates into our lives that you go through this identity shock and you're just like, well, where do I go from here? Right.
Mhm.
And so I think what you kind of talked about right now, I think it's so important to really take some time to reflect and figure out, okay, what are my priorities? What are my values? And how does this align in this current season of life? And like you said, it changes through time. I'm like, wow, where were you 4 years back?
Yeah, but what you said too, it's like, things change and maybe when you did leave the workforce, I'm assuming that's when you were a new mom and now you have two kids, like yes, it's busier, but you kind of also had like that wisdom from the beginning. And it's always important, like you said, like um take a step back, like assess like what's important to you, but also like once you design, this is okay, this is what I'm going to be doing, and this is how I'm going to be doing things and designing like what is your lifestyle or your life right now, like always reassess, like always take a look at like, is this still working for me? Because it could have been working, the first year, but then now things have changed, or like now maybe your child is in daycare. So like what was working then is not going to work anymore. So it's important to always just like reassess. Is this still working for me? And if it's not, like be flexible with, okay, so what do I need to do now then? But it's like you don't have to like stick to a certain thing or a certain way or approach. It's, you always have to be reassessing and figure out if that's still working for you, or if it's not, then okay, I'm gonna find a different approach, a different way. Because life is evolving, things are always happening, things are always changing. Like your demands at work might change, your children are growing, they have different needs and or maybe don't need you as much. So it's like always reassessing what's going on in your life, what's important in that moment, and how can I like make all of what I need to do and my responsibilities work for me, not having to work for them.
I think that's a reminder for myself too, with reassessing. And it's almost like doing those check-ins. We're good at
Mhm.
doing that at work. We're willing to check in on our
Yeah.
bosses or on ourselves. And I think that on a personal level, we should also be doing that and doing that
Yeah.
self.
Whether if it's like a daily check in to see like how am I feeling? How am I doing this week? Do I need to make some changes in my week because today was hard or today was exhausting? But then also like weekly check-ins, like how is everything, going this week? Monthly check-ins, quarterly check-ins. Like you said, we do that in our work, we do that in our careers, and our life is like where it's more important for you to like be kind of reflecting and monitoring and any patterns, identifying any things, and then making any changes when needed.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's awesome. Yeah, well, and then as I was doing research about you, you mentioned about the energy management over time management model. And so can you break that down a little bit for us? And, how does this ultimately transform into a busy mom's life, really?
Yeah, no, I think energy management is probably the like people that benefited the most, I would say are moms because you can have all the time in the world, but if you don't have the energy to like do the things you need to do, then it's not going to matter. And the whole concept was like managing your energy, like you're still, using time management strategies or like managing your time, but then you are going to prioritize things based on when you have the most amount of energy. You're going to deprioritize things that are energy drainers, things that are taking from your energy. You're going to deprioritize those things or move them into times where it's not robbing your energy. So that's what I like emphasize so much is the importance of like energy management because that is what's going to expand your capacity to be able to do all the things that you need to do as a mom. So, um, taking into account like when are the times of the day that you have the most energy, and then you align the tasks and activities that require you to be fully present, that require you to do like critical thinking. Um, and again, it's like I'm understanding my energy levels and understanding when I'm performing at my best. And then that is the time where I'm going to use for the things that I value and I prioritize. So, whether it's like, okay, I'm going to, you know, take advantage of when I have energy, and say like your child is taking a nap, and that's when you're going to be doing like the work that requires like, a lot of your productivity. Or I'm going to, instead of like trying to like I have a list to do things of things I need a to-do list, right? Of things I need to do, instead of trying to just like check as much as you can out of them. It's like, okay, I have that list, and out of that list, what requires more of my attention? Okay, I'm gonna do that in the times that I have the most energy, instead of like trying to tackle everything, and then you don't really get through everything on your list because you weren't strategic about how you did it. And that, I mean, that sounds like very like technical, but it's as simple as like understanding when do you have the most energy, and then just doing the things like that require your attention, that require you to be present, that require you to like make decisions in that time. And it really helps because instead of like trying to do everything in like those same 24 hours, if you're strategic in how you do that, then you're not going to be burning out. Cause that's like what happens, right? When you're like, I have these 20 things that I need to do. And then I'm like, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, by the time that you get to like the 15th thing, if you get to it, like you're exhausted, you're burning out. And that's not going to like help you at all with anything else. So when you're able to like manage your energy, and also like it goes more than just like, okay, I'm gonna do the things during that time, but it's like always like pausing and seeing, okay, like how am I feeling now? What do I need? Like you can
Right.
change things in the moment. Like I thought that I was gonna have more energy to do this, but now I'm seeing that I'm exhausted. Okay, right now I need a break. Right now I need like a few minutes. I need to go take a walk.
Right.
And that like walk is gonna actually, and this is also part of like managing your energy. It's like on times where your energy is low or depleted, or you're did something and that was really exhausting. Taking that break, doing something that's gonna recharge you. So like going for a walk, or literally just sitting there taking a few deep breaths. And that like allows you to like be able to maximize your time, maximize your energy, be able to be present in the times that you need to be present. So you're not just being robbed of all your energy because, just you're one person and you have limited energy. And depending on how you use it and how you, give yourself rest, how you nourish yourself back, then you're able to like be there for people and be there in a capacity that you want to be, not just like physically be there, but mentally exhausted.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely gives perspective about that difference, right, between time management and energy management. And if we change it to energy management, I think we will be able to be more in tune with our bodies
Mhm.
and kind of like our existence
Yes.
as humans than these robots, right? That we can just do it at any time of the day. And then we feel exhausted or we're not pretty much listening to our bodies and the energy that is left. And I have started to go back to therapy after a year. And one of the things that my therapist told me that just envision yourself as a battery. Where are you at? When your battery is basically empty, well, what do you do with the battery? You gotta re-energize it. You
Recharge
gotta
it. Yeah.
recharge it. Yeah. And so you have to think of yourself as that. Technically, our bodies are machines. And if we're not giving ourselves enough rest And if we don't give ourselves even the breathing techniques that you shared, it's like, how can we be present? How can we actually have the energy to do the things and not nag? Because I have found myself a lot where I feel like I have to do things at a certain time because otherwise I won't get to do them, or I feel like I won't have enough time. But in reality, we can make time if we put our energy towards the things that we want to do. And again, it's that give and give out sort of technique where we
Yeah.
have to prioritize essentially what we want to accomplish and then let other things go. But it does make
Yes.
it hard for many of us who are kind of trying to figure out, okay, well, I want to, we essentially want to embody being this perfect person, but in reality, we are human and it's hard to
Yeah.
break from that.
And that's what I call the mind drama, because the mind
Yeah.
drama is an energy drainer. That is like that whole time that you're spending having that conversation in your head about, oh, I need to do this at this time because I should be doing this. I want to do this. Like all that is taking like literally energy out of you. And you're getting exhausted just by having that conversation in your head.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, like the perfectionism, that I should do this, it needs to be this way. Like all that is like beliefs or limiting beliefs or, false negatives that you're putting onto yourself because it doesn't have to be that way. Like you don't have to do it at that time. You don't need to be perfect. Like those are just things that we are putting to ourselves. And instead of that, it's like, okay, like, when can I do this? Or what is the best time for me and my energy and my time of the day for me to do that? Instead of like, it needs to be done at this time or it's not going to get done. But like, maybe that's what you've been telling yourself. It's like when we tell ourselves we're not morning people. I don't want to wake up, at 6 a.m. I mean, like today I woke up like around like 5:50 or something to 5:50 my time to like do this. I could have been like, no, I'm not a morning person. I'm not doing a 7 a.m. podcast recording. But it's just like, okay, what do I need to do to like make things work so that I have the energy to be present here and have this conversation with you? And I know that's like a simple example, but it's just like a lot of the things, it's like we get in our own way.
Right.
And it's unnecessary like mind drama that in itself is making you exhausted. Like I had a friend too who told me that like she realized the whole mind drama thing is like laying in bed and she's a mom, like a new mom too, laying in bed thinking about all the things that she didn't do or all the things she needed to do the next day. And that in itself was like making her exhausted.
Huh.
So it's like it's not that you can't think about what you need to do, but if you're putting like that pressure on yourself or those demands or those rules of what you need to do or how it needs to be done or those limitations of like it can't be done a certain way, then you're just giving yourself like unnecessary drama, exhaustion, and if you like think about those things from a different perspective, in a different like mindset, like, yeah, you can think about what you have to do, but like, how can I be strategic? How can, like, yes, I need to get all these things done. Do I need to get them done in one day? Can I move some things to the next day? Like, does it really need to be done today?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like a lot of the things that we all need, not just moms, but I feel like especially moms, it's just like pause, reflect, and then make adjustments based on what is going to work for you in that day. Because even if you plan that week a certain way or that day a certain way, like you're not going to know how you're feeling until that day. So taking into account, like you said, like recognizing your body and your patterns and your needs. And if today I thought I was going to be able to do all those things, but in reality, I can't, that's okay. Things can move to the next day. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much for this reminder. And I think that a lot of people are probably gonna be like, oof, she's targeting me, but sometimes we need that reality check, really. And I love how you said about the mind drama concept. And honestly, I never heard of this until I was prepping the questions and have these conversations with your clients about how we can break away from those things. And so, in the context of Latina moms, what are some of those common mind dramas? You did explain a little bit, but based on what you've noticed, what are some common issues that really affect Latina moms? And how can we manage this? How can we kind of break away from that?
Yeah. I mean, some of the things that like I've noticed a lot, and I mean, it doesn't just, you know, it's not just about moms, but I feel like as for moms, I see it's like there is a higher level of like self-imposed expectation
Mhm.
and the I should do these, and then feeling guilty when you don't do things, or feeling guilty when you maybe prioritize other things over your kids. And not that you don't care about your kids, but then you feel like, oh, if I prioritize doing this for myself or hanging out with my friends, then I'm not giving to my kids. So it's like those mindset things that you're just like, it doesn't mean that that you don't love your kids because you went to coffee with your friend, you know? And sometimes it might not be as like silly as that, but it could be like a lot of different reasons, or even feeling like you're inadequate, like, oh, like everyone else is a better mom than me. Like, why is it so hard for me? I'm, falling behind. Or if your child maybe hasn't reached a milestone, is it something that I'm doing?
Right.
Um, Overcommitting, or wanting to like, or feeling like you need to do everything. It's like what you said in the beginning, like it's okay to ask for help. Like that's so important because I feel like, you are putting all of these like expectations for you to be able to be there for everybody in your house, for you to be able to like be like superwoman, but like you can't be everything and every time and there for everybody. And it's okay to ask for help. And it's so important to like lean on your partner if you have one, lean on your community, lean on, other people that are open to like be part of your village. And that doesn't mean that you're not a good mom or that you're not good at what you're doing. It just means that, you are allowing other people to help so that you can show up as your best self. Because otherwise you're just showing up, you know, frazzled, showing up like on crisis mode all the time. And, it's not really being like you're not showing up as the way that you would want to be there present for your people, for your family, for your children. And I think like the key is again, it's like pausing, reflecting, like, is this serving me? Like, is me thinking this thing or believing this, is this serving me?
Mhm.
Like me thinking, oh, I need to like do this a certain way. Like, wait, is that serving me? Or am I just like setting these false expectations for myself? Or
Mhm.
like, when you are telling yourself like, oh, I'm failing, I'm not a good mom, like, okay, like pause. Is this serving me? And it's just
Yeah.
as simple as that. And then, okay, so what if it's not? Like, how can I change this? Like, what can I do to like have, more positive thoughts about around it? And not just like telling yourself, I mean, actually, it's not a bad idea telling yourself like, I'm a good mom. But like, how can you give your mind that evidence that you are like, okay, today I did this. Like, it might be like simple things. Today, I fed my child breakfast.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not falling behind. I'm not a bad mom. Today, I took my kids to school. Like, just celebrating those tiny wins as
Mhm.
it being evidence that you are the things that you think you're not, or the things that you think you lack.
Mhm.
And then, just giving yourself grace because you're doing the best that you can. And recognizing that, celebrating the things that you do, and just like giving yourself love and compassion.
Mhm. I love that. I think, yeah, it's a great reminder for people. And I love how we don't recognize the little things, right? Like the little celebrations about the fact that we took our kids to the park or, to school, like those little things.
And for them,
And
that probably would meant the world to them. Like, my
right,
mom took me to the park
right,
today.
right. Yeah, exactly. And at least for me, I'm trying to figure out, okay, how can I best meet their needs? They're kind of like struggling a little bit at home. They probably feel a little confined. Okay, what's a creative way for me to take them out? I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna take them to the park. And then, but I love how you put this into, perspective. Like, no, you need to celebrate because this is a big thing. It could be a big thing for our kids. And instead of just like taking that energy, right, towards like thinking, oh man, I'm not a good mom because they're bored or because I am not creative. Like I often think about that. Like I am not a creative mom because I I blame a lot on social media because you see a lot of moms that are just like creating all these fun artsy activities and they have all of the supplies, all of the toys. And I'm like, dang, I'm not a good mom because my kids don't have that. Or my kids,
Yeah,
you
but your
know,
life is different than them. Like, they might
yeah,
have all the support that you might have, or
exactly.
resources, or they don't have another job, or they don't have
Right.
a job in a business. Like giving yourself credit and not compare. Actually, that is probably a huge one that I missed, is compare yourself to other
Mhm.
moms, comparing yourself to other people. It's like, you don't know their life and what's behind the scenes, and maybe it looks fun and exciting, but what if underneath all that she's exhausted and she's like, I mean, mental breakdown. Like, we don't know people's lives, and then trying to compare our lives to other people, it's like we don't know what resources they have that you don't. We don't know like their life and really what's going on underneath all that. And you're doing, like, you taking them to the park, that's you being as creative as you can in that moment, and that's
Mhm.
enough. Because, again, like, for kids, they're just happy to have you there. They're just happy to be with you, happy that they get to get out of the house, and for them, that is as fun as going to Disneyland. But in your mind, I'm like, "I'm not creative because I didn't take them to Disneyland."
I know. Yeah. 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 No, thanks for pointing that out. And and I think it's all about our mindset. It's all about putting perspective and recognizing that these are moments that our kids will have in their core memory instead of just like trying to figure out, "Oh, am I doing a good job? Why is that mom better than me?" Instead of focusing and putting our energy on that, it's definitely important to put our energy towards our existence and being present. And I love how you talked about giving ourselves grace too, because that's such a big one as well.
Yeah, and if you see, like, that mom that you're, like, impressed, talk to her. You never know, you
Mhm.
might get some tips, or then you also will realize, oh, she has a lot more resources, and that's why she can do that.
Yeah.
Um, and just like, reminding yourself, you have what you have, and you're making the best of what you have, and that's good enough.
Mm. Love it. Love it. Yeah. And so, Jessica, when you shared that you were in the professional world
Mhm.
and all of that, and now you shifted into a more intentional way of living, like what has your own personal journey with these concepts helped you to work with individuals? And how can you guide mujeres towards a sustainable balance? Because we often find ourselves in that trap, right? In that 50-50 balance myth.
Mhm.
When did you encounter this? Like, how did you essentially grow out of that too?
Yeah, for me, it was actually like more out of need. I was really focused on my career and my education for so long. And like I shared with you, like, I'm the oldest daughter of immigrants. I grew up in LA. I grew up in South Central LA. So it wasn't like we had a lot of resources. It's more like lower income communities. And from the moment I can remember, I knew that my education was what was going to like help me have a better life. And so I put like all of my energy and all of my effort into my education and going to college and having a career. So like that was my identity. My education and my career was my identity. And then that caused me to burn out. Like I was just neglecting my health, neglecting like my like family, neglecting like the things that were important. I wasn't dating, like it really took like a toll on so many areas. But like what was the wake up call for me was more it's I had been living with anxiety my whole adult life, and it wasn't until like right after grad school that it got so bad that I needed like professional support, that I developed depression, or maybe I had it and I never even knew. So that like really made me have to reassess, like, what are my priorities? What am I valuing? Like, is this the life that I want to live where I'm just, a slave to my career, my job, because I feel that that defines me, because I feel that that gives me worth. And then I was like, okay, I need to make changes. Number one, I was prioritizing my well being, and just like that's going to be my number one priority now. But in just like giving in to myself, focusing on nourishing myself and focusing on me, that opened up a lot of different things in my life and expanded my capacity to like, okay, now family important to me. I moved back to California closer to like my best friend, and she's married to my cousin, and like have family here, and got the dog that I wanted, because for so long I'm like, I don't have time for a dog. I'm always like doing things, always out of the house. I don't have time for a dog. Again, stories that we tell ourselves.
Yeah.
So I got my dog, got my apartment, and a few years later met my current partner. Like it's just focusing on myself and making that a priority allowed me to like open up other opportunities in my life, open up other things in my life. And I can't but accidentally creating that balance I needed, even though I wasn't doing it to get the balance. I was doing it because I didn't want to live that way anymore. And I
Mhm.
didn't like want to jeopardize my health and well being for an identity that I thought was giving me worth, where I'm like, I'm already worthy because of being me, not because I have this degree or this career. And I mean, I'm still a career driven person. But now I recognize what's important to me and what do I value, and I give priority to those things. Because at the end of the day, like my health in my relationship are important, and everything else can be replaceable and can be like changed. Like
Right.
I can have another job, I can, and my education and my like what I know, it's not gonna go away. So but not like letting that define me, and like starting off with like, "Oh, who are you? Oh, I'm Jess. I have an MBA. I have this career." Like that's there's more to me than just that. And it took me a while to like recognize that. And now that I did like I said, accidentally created the work life balance that I needed. And now it's trying to help other people and other women. A lot of it, it's like or like my focus is, yes, I help you create work life balance, but before you can even create work life balance, you need to understand what is at the core of your lack of balance. So for me, it was career, and it was like around identity, right? And what I thought made me worthy, but for someone else, it could be something different. So it's like, for me, it's like so important when I work with my clients is to like uncover like what is the root cause of why you are overworking. Why do you feel the need that that's the only way you can prove your worth? Or why do you feel like you need to people please? Like, and then once you start addressing that, the tools and the strategies are the easy part. The hard part is like getting out of that mindset. It's about undoing all of those years of conditioning and
Mhm.
really understanding yourself and giving in to yourself. Like those are the hard parts. The self-care is the hard part because you're not used to like operating that way. You're not used to prioritizing you that way. So those are the hard parts. The easy part, the time management, the everything else, that's just once you like work on the inner work and the or you I guess you always hear that, right? Do the inner work. But yeah,
Mhm.
once you do that inner work, like everything else is just a way for you to learn how to like manage things and have like a better schedule or a better lifestyle. But people always think, oh, well, I need the time management in order for me to have work life balance. Yes, but that's incomplete. You need to understand why you're even operating in that way. You need to really change that, change from within so that you can change everything that's outside of you.
Thank you so much for sharing your story and for folks to consider that this is possible. And I think it's the American culture that I kind of define ourselves based on our jobs, based on what we do. And everyone, when you get to meet someone, the first thing that they ask is, what do you do? And it
Hmm.
goes straight to their career, straight to their jobs.
Hmm.
And for me, it's so annoying because that shouldn't define you. What should define you is your character, your personality, your true passions, your hobbies, what you love, what makes you smile or happy, all of those things that really define who you are. And I think we need to shift that or answer them differently than just like your
Yeah.
job title.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, it took me a lot of undoing because that was exactly like you asked me, what do I do? What or tell me about yourself. That was like the first thing that I mentioned because it's what I thought like made me who I am. But in reality, like you said, we need to normalize like making space and highlighting like what really makes you
Mhm.
because we all have grown up in a society where it's like your career makes you you. No, it doesn't. It's just a part of you.
Well, Tocaya, where can people find you? How can they connect with you? Because I think you have a lot to offer.
Yeah, so I am on Instagram under Jessica Lynn Wellness. I also have a website is jessicalynn-wellness.com. And then, yeah, so I work with women of color one-on-one coaching. Typically, it's a 3-month program, and we work on, creating the space in your life for what matters to you. So not like my experiences with my clients, they're not all the same. They're all different. I've worked with so many different amazing women and not their experiences are not all the same, but at the core is like understanding like what got you to where you are of you not having time and energy for what's important to you. And then how can we get you there?
Mhm.
And get
Yeah.
you there in a sustainable way, in a way that's, gonna change the way that you operate inside, and then it's going to, like, make everything else feasible for you to be able to create time and energy for those things.
Mm. I love it. I love it. And I love that you get to work with so many different mujeres. And yeah, you just guide them through this whole transformative change process in their lives. So, Jessica, thank you so much for being here, for sharing your wisdom, for really even helping me think differently and put things into perspective. I'll definitely be utilizing some of your tips that you shared here, and maybe I'll connect with you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Mujer, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to listen to the Viva la Mami podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, will you do me a favor and follow the podcast and leave a rating and review? Hitting that follow button and reviewing my show will allow other mommies like you find this podcast. Your review will also tell me if you enjoy the show, so I would truly appreciate your thoughts. Don't forget, please share this podcast con tus amigas. Also, make sure to follow me at Viva la Mami on Instagram or visit vivalamami.com. Please note the information shared in this podcast is for educational purposes only and should not be taken as professional advice. Okay, mujer, thank you for joining y nos vemos in the next episode.